Morning, everyone. This is Nigel Lee coming back to you with big ideas, and I'm here with my friend.
Good evening, everybody. It's me, Jack Kelley, here for Big Ideas.
Yeah. So last week we recorded our first episode on nationalism and coming to terms on whether it was a good or bad thing for the world. Uh, I don't think we really ended up with a final decision, but we'll revisit it in time. So
I,
today,
de- I, de-
yeah,
I definitely got something out of it.
yeah, yeah.
I got a new perspective, and I think I might have changed my mind a bit. Definitely changed perspective.
Mm. I mean that's what we're here to do, and we're just here to talk. Before I introduce the topic for today, yesterday I was talking to a friend, and he was commenting about our podcast, and he was like, "You guys aren't getting." Oh, I got a Facebook message. This is exactly the point I was trying to get to. Uh, okay, the audio probably picked that up, but what my friend was saying is like, you're not getting to the point of what you're talking about. You know, you're not really focusing on the topic, but our podcast isn't aimed to be like an educational podcast. It's just two, people, good friends, just casually talking about like politics and things like that. And it's going to be to a degree a bit unprofessional, and that's fine. And I think as long as we keep it genuine, that's good for us. Stress free, you know.
Yeah, having that sort of casual atmosphere, but still being serious and genuine is
Yeah.
honestly what we're here to do. I mean, we're not professors in our field. We don't have degrees at all, so um, I don't want to pretend to be a professional. I don't want to pretend to be an expert. I just have opinions, a background, and some research under my belt. So
Yeah. Yeah, and that's all we're here for. We're just here to talk, and it's also for Jack and I too, just to log our conversations in a way and give us something to do every 2 weeks or so. Anyways, so the topic for today will be a democracy. I mean, it's been on my mind, and I know Jack is getting involved with elections in Montana. So we're just gonna
mm,
go and see where that takes us, and we'll decide on what the episode will be called based on the conversation we have. Um, yeah, Jack, you want to tell us about the primaries, or it's not the primaries anymore, right?
it is the primaries.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, the voting is election day, and that's in November.
Mhm.
So the primaries here in Montana, I've been mostly interested in the Republican primaries, particularly the Senate race um, against the incumbent Democrat John Tester,
Mhm.
and the four candidates that the that rose up from the fields of Montana. And I had a pretty nice experience, my first time ever, I guess, seeing a debate slash Q&A forum with the four Republican candidates that was hosted at my university. So I got
Mm.
a front row seat to see everything, and then afterwards went to a went to a pizza restaurant with the campaign team of uh, of one of the candidates. That is Matt Rosendale.
Yeah, that's great.
Um,
That's great.
and honestly, it helped me see kind of like the living in Singapore for
Mm.
most of my adolescent life,
Mm.
or all of it actually. When I came into politics, or came into reading about politics, um, I was very focused on big picture things. Like I was very focused on presidential candidates and stuff, and or the general elections in Singapore or the UK, but not specifically like local
Mm.
elections. I didn't pay much attention to them. But
Mm.
with this primary, I felt a bit more connected and involved. Like this is more serious than
Yeah,
than
yeah,
I've
yeah.
than I've given it credit for. Even like state senate and state house of representatives. Like I'm still invested in like making sure. Okay, what do I'm going to do some research on these people. I'm going to see they are, what they stand for.
Yeah.
And even though the information is not as comprehensive as you get with general elections, I still like make the effort to try and figure out and be informed. It's
Yeah.
the least
Well,
I could do.
I think I think you make a good point about how you feel more connected when it comes to local elections, and I think at the core that is what American democracy really has been about.
Mm,
And I mean, if you look at it, the most directly democratic part of government, at least in the federal government, it would be Congress, the House of Representatives, because those people are directly elected within the constituencies that they represent. And people care more about that. And I think how the world perceives American democracy, they only see the presidential election, right? That's all they see.
mm,
And so they don't really realize that, like, okay, some people say like, oh, Trump, the election of Donald Trump marks the downfall of American democracy, but yeah. But they
mm,
don't see that democracy is deeply rooted in local elections as well, you know. And that's where people care most about politics, as you know, as you have, because you feel a direct impact
mm.
from these policymakers. And
Yeah.
yeah, in Singapore we don't really have that. You know, it's a small island city. We don't really have that, and so I think the democratic values are not well inculcated within the Singaporean mind, but I think in time we'll be able to do that in time.
Mm. What you mentioned about like directly impacting with like the local elections, when you see decisions that the president is making or the Supreme Court, or
Mm,
a bill passed in Congress, which was like voted on by hundreds of people, like it you don't feel as connected to that. You feel like that's going on and you have little to no control over that.
correct.
But when you have people running for, say, like commissioner of the school district,
Mm,
or sheriff or something in your community, something that you care about because you live there, you have a vested interest in your community doing well. You And when you see people who aren't performing as well, or you see people who want to bring something good to the table, or what you think is good to the table, you feel a lot more energetic. As
yeah,
I have.
yeah,
I
exactly.
mean, I never thought I'd get like, wrapped up reading, articles and opinion pieces about like the 6 mil levy for Gallatin County, or about mining in the area outside of Yellowstone. Like
Mm,
reading so much about it from people on both sides, and really like challenging how I feel, because on the one hand I do have principles that I think are universal, but on the other hand I also want what's best for the people around me. I
exactly,
want that. Yeah. And
exactly. And
so,
when you get involved at such a local level and such a direct level, you see your principles in play
mm,
immediately, you know. It takes
mm,
time if you're in like the presidency to really bring your principles down, and
mm,
even then it'll be mellowed and things like that. and that's the thing. Why I'm in awe and jealous, I guess, of American democracy and Western democracy is that there is a greater level of participation. And in Singapore, really don't have that. We really don't. And
Mm.
I really believe we need to have that. If Singapore prides itself for being a first world nation and being unique within Southeast Asia and I think overall all of Asia. And yeah, it is a unique country. It is a unique city. But the one thing that Asia has always lacked is a functioning democracy, a nation that has those democratic values within them. And I think one thing I want to bring up about what has irked me about Singapore, actually two things about elections in Singapore. One is that if you want to run as a candidate, you have to put in a deposit of like a few $1,000s before you run. And you only get that deposit back if you break a threshold of more than 10% of the votes within a constituency. And the second being that you cannot vote until you are 21 years of age, which to me is outrageous, and I'll get into why. The first point I brought up about the deposit, it only allows wealthy people or people with enough backers to run a campaign. And on one hand, you have the argument that it curtails parties, joke parties, like the Lord Buckethead in the UK or something like that. Or what's the other guy? The
Vermin Supreme.
Yeah, Vermin Supreme. Yeah, true, you do, but that is part of a democracy. People are smart enough not to support them. But
Or if
we,
they
Mhm.
do support those kinds of parties, they do it as a form of protest
That's
or
true.
awareness.
Yeah, that's
Like
true.
with Vermin Supreme, it's um, like a parody of campaign promises and such, like providing everyone with a free pony sponsored by the government. Like, I mean, that in itself is a form of criticism of politicians
Yeah,
promising, like, you may not be like directly money, but you're getting something by voting for me. You're essentially bribing people with their own money.
yeah, that's true.
So,
That's true. And
even if it's a joke, voting for it is still saying something.
yeah, 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 you're right. And I only wish that Singapore didn't have such a system of this whole scheme of getting deposits and things like that. But there's not much we can change about that as citizens. But on the other hand, about the voting age, that is more of a concern for me. Look, at the age of 18, every Singaporean man has to is enlisted into the army around that age. If you can trust a boy with a rifle, if you can trust a boy to defend your country, should he not also have the right to vote and decide how his country should be? It's despicable that we don't have that in place. That the voting age is 18, not 21. Sorry, the voting age is 21 and not 18. In fact, I believe it should be much lower. And in order to instill the very democratic values that this country wants to have, in principle at least, you need to start young. And if you start by 21, people, it's too late. It's too late.
Why is it too late?
Well,
Just out of curiosity.
yeah. I mean, look, even in Western countries, they're debating that they should lower the voting age from 18 to 16. And why does it matter is because the youth tend to be more active in politics. and I'm not discussing about their political views, but the political activity and excitement is definitely there. And let's not forget that a lot of policy does impact them. You know, a lot of welfare policies, education policies, they either accumulate debt or that the younger ones have to pay off for their grandparents and parents. These are things that politicians always miss out, and there's always that discontent at the time when these young voters become old enough to run for government and things like that. And so it's that vicious cycle that we need to break. And the younger you start, the younger you teach them how to vote responsibly, how to get involved, how to stay informed. That's a healthy democracy. That's a healthy democracy. But if you don't have that in place and you start old when people start focusing on making money or securing their livelihood for their family and all this and that, that's great, that's fine, that's normal. But there's no more of a concern about looking at principle or the ethics of certain policies. So I just think that, look, if we can allow someone at the age of 18 to shoot a gun and protect this country, they should also be able to vote. I mean, I don't think that's asking for much. I'm in regards to Singapore, but in general around the world, I think the voting age should be like 16 or 17, not 18.
I mean, it would make sense for Singapore to at least be consistent with their laws regarding, 18 should be voting age, or the age in which you are compelled into service for the country. You should also be able to have that right that comes with that service and not be denied of it for another few years.
Yeah, yeah.
But for your general point about the voting age being lower, this is something that I've often thought about, and because I'm very interested in neuroscience, so I approach it from a perspective of, okay, at what point in general will people be like fully capable of making an informed decision?
Okay.
Because
so tell me about that. Tell me about that.
There's a lot. I mean, for me, the idea that I have right now, the conception I have is there's a line somewhere between like a child and someone who is informed enough that, once they cross that line, they should be able to vote. So but the problem is, just because someone's 18 or because someone's 21 doesn't mean that they are quote unquote mentally mature enough. I mean, if we go by that argument, then there's plenty of adults that are not mentally mature. I mean, fully functioning and like regular people, but aren't, as to some arbitrary standards, mentally fit to vote. And so drawing a line somewhere that's universal is really difficult.
It is difficult because I think it also
and a solution for that, like having IQ tests at the polls, like that. I mean, that would go against the idea of democracy for the common man.
Of course.
Which is difficult
I think
for me to swallow.
I mean, I think it's not about setting a standard, but setting the right environment for that. Like strengthening a civics course in school, having mock elections in school. What else? I think this whole social media part has done both a good and bad job for the youth in terms of political involvement and setting the environment for political involvement. And I think that's because it's been a lack. There's been a lack of that in school, and I'm not sure about how it is in America, but I heard that in the past civics course was a very big deal. And now it's kind of faded, and schools are more into STEM and focus on more technical things.
Mm.
And that's the problem, you know. Kids don't see the problem. Okay, there I think there are two main groups of youth. One is they don't realize how powerful they are in terms of political involvement if they do get involved, and we saw how much of a sway they held when they did get involved in the UK elections and
Mm.
also in the United States. And the other group is people that really want to get involved but can't. And so we need to bring up the first group of people who don't realize it or are apathetic, and we need to get them to care. And that's how you create a healthy democracy. I don't think it's about a line or a standard that you need to
Mm.
set, but it's how do we push them to care, you know. And another thing, in Singapore, it is mandatory to vote, which
Mm.
leads me to think like in a democratic society or a free society, ideally, shouldn't you have the choice to vote? I mean, does it cross a line or not?
I believe it does cross a line
Mm.
because if you are given, in, if we talk about the right to vote given to people, then you don't have to use all of your rights
Yeah.
all of the time. Like, I have the right to not be a witness to myself in a court of law, but I can also choose to be a witness against myself.
Mm.
I have the choice.
Mm.
I have the right to to bear arms, but that doesn't mean I have to, have a fully stocked armory on me at all times.
Yeah, you're right.
As amazing as that would
Yeah.
be, but and so I think a similar thing should apply to the right to vote, where if people feel as if they are disillusioned with the options, if they are actually apathetic and they don't care, then they shouldn't be forced into making a decision.
Mm.
But at the
Mm.
same time,
I mean,
this,
in
I don't
Singapore,
fully agree with this.
yeah.
But by being compelled to vote, then that you plan around that. You say, okay, I'm going to have to do something, so I'm going to have to do at least some research on
That's true.
what I'm voting for.
That's true.
At least that's the hope.
That is true. But anyways, in Singapore, I think you can. I've never voted, but because I'm not old enough. But uh, I think you can choose like no option or something like that. You can spoil your
Mm.
vote. I think. I'm not sure, but the next general election is coming up soon, and I'm very excited to see how that goes because uh, I've been invested in one political party myself and just been
Mm.
observing and just hearing about what they're doing, and it's just fascinating to see um, politics in action, as you
Do you
said.
want to talk? Do you want to
Well,
talk about that a bit, or do
well,
you want to?
okay. Well, the thing is
No.
that I'm in the army, and
Mm.
technically, it is a very gray area on. It's explicitly stated that you cannot be part of any political party or be politically involved. So I'm just gonna go out
Mm.
and say that I'm just an observer, for the record.
Okay.
For the record.
Okay. For the record.
I'm just an observer. I'm curious. I'm not helping anyone in any way. Um, but in many ways, it's much like um, your experience. Just meeting all these
Mm.
people who really have a stake in society, and it really is extremely, extremely energizing. It is. for years studying politics, reading about it, and now all of a sudden you're with all these people who are the very people you've been studying about.
Mm.
It's wonderful. And you also see a dirty side. You also see a dirty side about politics, especially in Singapore. Not that the people that I've been observing are doing bad things, but that there are many things we cannot do or we cannot say, and we have to be careful about because of the establishment either clamping down on us and things like that. And it is very terrifying. It is very extremely terrifying. But we have to rise above that, or else no one can no one can make change, you know.
Mm.
And it is very sad that I live in a country where your political views it could be a criminal offense. And it's not like I want to destroy Singaporean society. It's not. Or anyone, of the matter of fact, who's anti-establishment. But it is very sad, and I hope in my lifetime I will see my country become a free nation, and free from fear. And yeah, that's all I really want. For a long time I was wanting to like leave Singapore and go to America and become a citizen and this and that. But I think for now, since I'm here, I wanted to try to play a part in making this country into something that I want it to be. There's no point running away.
Mm.
And which leads me to one thing that has been on my mind. When the NFL football players like took kneeled during the anthem and things
Yeah.
like that, and people like Tommy Lauren said like,
Mm.
if you don't like this country, you should get out, leave, things like that. I don't believe in that. I don't believe in that you can say like, if you don't like how this country is, just leave. That's a very cowardly thing to say and a very cowardly thing to do if you're going to leave the country because you don't like how it's being run. If your country is being subverted or turning into something you don't want it to be, you have to stand your ground and fight against it. Or else if you do leave, then it is going to become that very thing you don't want it to be. On the other hand, you have the people who say leave. To them I say it's just a very fascist thing to do, to just want people who oppose you to get out and not sit down and listen to them. I don't know how severe that is in Montana, or if such discussion is ever brought up there when you're in the U.S.
I mean, discussions are brought up, but it's mainly in like a discussion class that I had to take that it really was talked about because this is Montana. There's not much of the racial issues that these players are supposedly protesting about. So, I mean, it's not something that I've personally experienced, but I've definitely seen, and I feel like, I mean, of course, saying you should leave if you don't like the country is perhaps not the right thing to say. But at the same time, I think that some people who don't like seeing that, who, even, I don't care what they believe, but if they see that kind of thing and they're like, I don't approve of that, I don't agree with them, so I'm not going to support this company anymore.
Yeah.
Then, I mean, the boycotting, NFL ratings are as low as they've ever been. College football is becoming a lot more popular, and I can confirm it's a lot more fun to watch.
Right. Right. But, I mean, you compare it to a company, right? And I think a country is very different from a company.
Yeah.
A country is just, it's who you are. And sometimes you can't choose, I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong, but
But although I don't want to, but I mean the NFL is just full of problems with pretty much uh, not being exactly a private company since it's very much in cahoots with like city governments and whatnot,
mm,
like getting them to use taxpayer money to build stadiums, which don't they don't provide as much revenue as
mm,
is spent on them. It's only providing revenue to the NFL, and people still do that because there's something about the NFL that's like part of the culture in a way
mm,
that which is why people care about it, and it's why protesting is like that is making big waves is because it's a cornerstone of the culture in a way. It's
yeah,
kind of like the chariot racing teams
yeah,
in like the Byzantine Empire. They were basically like political movements in a way,
that's true.
just political bodies
Yeah, yeah. That you're right.
because
You're
it's
right.
something people care about.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, the NFL, I think especially after 9/11, became a very political body. It became a way for people to rally behind a sport that embodied American values and American
Mm-hmm.
culture. And for players and essentially the heroes of the stadium to
Mm-hmm.
kind of challenge the very culture that they embody, I guess is why it brought up that kind of uproar. But again, I
I
think
also
I'm conflicted on that, and it's a good thing that we talk about this because it is a very democratic value, to speak your mind, freedom of speech.
mm,
Is it wrong for them to do that? And is it wrong for okay, I think if the NFL decides that you can't, well, you're employed by them. It's
mm,
you sign on to them, so you follow the contract.
yeah.
But let's ignore that. Is it right or wrong for them to do that, to kneel during the anthem?
I don't think it's wrong,
Yeah.
even if it makes people feel uncomfortable because when they follow their team, it's like a tribal identity in a way.
Mm,
It's a subculture that they're part of that they support. And when they see their team, who I mean, they may not even have people who have lived in whatever
mm-hmm.
geographical area that team's from, but they just care about the colors of the team and their success.
Yeah.
So when they see them doing something that uh, you know shows them as having a different political tribe in a way from them,
Mm,
it makes them it's a form of cognitive dissonance in a way that they want to be on the same tribe as these people, but when they have those open disagreements, they can't identify with that, and it makes them outraged and
mm,
angry about
mm,
things.
mm. You're
But
right.
that doesn't mean it's wrong
Yeah.
because I mean, if they do
Yeah.
what they want to do, and if it makes other people outraged, then it makes other people outraged.
Yeah.
There's
For
really
sure.
nothing you can do about that.
I think on this topic we should table it and bring in someone
Mm,
who's a very staunch patriot, that kind of one of these people who
yes,
is against it, because I
yes.
really want to have a conversation with someone like that. So we should do that for another episode. But it's a good topic. Let's save
Mm.
this. Let's save this for a guest. So I think since we're almost wrapping up, let's change the subject. So, okay, I mean, we kind of talked about democracy in Singapore and local democracy in the U.S., but anyways, this episode was not as structured as the first one, but it was
Mm.
more of just a conversation, anyways. Uh, since we're almost wrapping up, I guess I want to switch to like what we're reading. What are you reading, Jack?
Oh, I have been reading 12 Rules for Life by
Ah,
Dr.
yes.
Jordan Peterson.
Yeah, I've also picked that up. I stopped at the
Mm.
second chapter though because I got a few books pushed on me.
Mm.
One of them is John Stuart Mill on Liberty,
Mm.
and
Ah,
I read a few pages of that, but then I paused because I got another book that got pushed on me, Uh, it's called Rise by Liam Young, and it was about the youth getting involved in the British elections in 2017 and how they played a fundamental role in turning the tables, basically. And I'm almost done with that. I think I want to aim to finish that today. Um, yeah, hopefully. But other than that, after that, I think I'll continue with John Stuart Mill. It's a very dense book. It's small. It's really short, but it's really dense, and the language is borderline archaic. So it's like worse than reading the Bible. uh, but I think these are the things that are essential. There has to be some lines that I need to get out of it that get the general idea. Uh, anyways, 12 Rules of Life, I think it's a good book. I really enjoyed it. It really
Oh yeah.
did put things into perspective. I've not finished it, obviously.
Mm.
I think it's a book you gotta read slowly. It's not like one of those books you
Yeah.
sit down and read it from
Mm.
front to back. So
You have
that's why I
to
put
you
a
have to
pause on
take
it.
some time to kind of digest
Yeah,
it a bit. Like
yeah,
after you're
yeah,
done reading a rule, and then
yeah,
you're sort of
yeah,
seeing its like applications in your life,
yeah,
and you
yeah.
meditate on it a bit more. It's
Definitely,
a lot like when I
definitely.
read
Amen.
the Tao Te Ching,
Mm.
which um,
Yeah, we gotta spend an
of which
episode on that.
yeah yeah of which
You gotta lead that one.
Peterson yeah with which Peterson mentions a lot. He
Mm, mm.
refers to the Tao a lot.
Yeah, no,
Um,
not a lot.
and
Like his book is
yeah,
based
uh,
off of it.
yeah.
It's
I mean, there's I mean, not only in the book every now and then, but in like his lectures and
mm,
such.
mm, mm, mm.
So after I'm done reading 12 Rules for Life, and I'm done, not done, but have meditated on it enough in my life, the
Mm,
next text for me would be the writings of Zhuangzi, which
mm.
was
Hmm.
it's like the secondary text
Mm.
of Taoist
Correct.
philosophy.
Yeah.
He was this Taoist guy, and he had a bunch of these fables, and I want to read through it and like get a more complete understanding of it, because the Tao Te Ching was very influential and helpful
Mm.
in my life around the time that I
Yeah.
read it.
Yeah. I have only read parts of it, but I
Mm.
think if we kind of set up some episodes to go through it together, I think that would be
Mm.
fun, and that would give me a reason
Yeah.
to really read into it. Uh,
Yes.
but yeah, you're right. 12 Rules is one of those books you just gotta read one chapter and digest it,
Mm.
and it takes time. So yeah, that makes me feel half as bad putting a pause on it for now. uh, but I remember, the first chapter he talks about lobsters. I don't know if you guys, our listeners, have read it, but read that book. It's really a good book. And the first chapter he talks about lobsters and how they function. How they function reflects a lot about how humans also function in the larger scale, and
Mm.
it's true. You know, it's true. You gotta be
It's
brave. When I heard about his first chapter, I think it was titled like "Stand Up Straight, Shoulders Back," something like that. It's
Yep.
not. It's not about your physical posture. It's not about that. It's about your mentality. It's about going head on and doing things with confidence and pride, and not be afraid of whatever is to
Mm.
come. Because if you prepare yourself too much for the worst case scenario, you're never going to dare to do anything. You're just going to be
Mm.
waiting for the worst thing to happen. And it's very true. I mean, I experience personal experience with uh, these kinds of really, you know, anxiety inducing experiences. So I understand that. And we just really have to push on, and to link it back to democracy. In Singapore, democracy sometimes feels like a very hopeless movement, very hopeless thing to achieve. But if we go through it head on and we dare to change it, then it's possible. And I think also with the U.S. with your local elections, I mean, you're supporting what, a libertarian, right? A third party.
No, Republican.
Oh,
Actually,
Republican. Okay.
in
But
Republican primaries.
right. Okay. Okay.
But I mean, at least for the Senate race, because for the House or like state House and state Senate, I will definitely be looking at the Libertarian candidates because we actually do have a lot of them in the House and Senate here. Montana is like one of the top states for having libertarians in the population.
Right, correct. Yeah.
So.
That's very true. But yeah, I mean, getting these kinds of third parties involved and is you have to dare to break away from the establishment and the norm, and you have to, and that's the only way you bring about change. So, I think we should wrap up. Any last words, Jack?
I do have a question.
Yeah.
When are we going to have the podcast?
What?
When are we going to have Amos E on the podcast?
Oh, Amos E. I mean, well, let's be more established first. Let's have this more habituated in terms of a bi-weekly podcast, and then we'll see where it goes. But he'll definitely be a notable guest for sure. But when, I don't know, but we'll arrange it. So yeah, I mean, that's it. I think we should, our next episode, I think we should continue in democracy. I think we just touched on it today.
There's a lot to talk about. So.
Yeah, I think in the next few episodes we can discuss by region or by country. I don't know. We'll see where it goes. But anyways, take care. Thank you for listening. If you've come to this point of the podcast, that's great to have listened for 40 freaking minutes about two ignorant kids talking about pretending they know about democracy. But yeah, thank you so much.
Yes, thank you everyone, and thank you, Nigel.
Oh, thank you, Jack. All right, bye-bye.
Bye-bye, everyone.